Good morning and happy Shochu'sday, everybody, from both Stephen and I here in Japan, drinking our coffee. Mine smells weird. It's not as nutty as usual. Happy Shochu'sday.
Good morning, Christopher.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good, good. I'm up and at it this morning. Got a good night's sleep, and yeah, excited to talk Japanese gin and other random things that we have on
Japanese
our mind.
gin. Yeah, I just realized as soon as you said that, I realized I hadn't put the first banner up, which means I'm already failing at this. Yeah, let us know what you're thinking, what you're drinking. Put it in the comments, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook. Let's start the conversation. Our cups have, I've got my trusty Bristol, Vermont potted cup of Joe, and then I've got an Awamori glass filled with sparkling water. Should
I've got
set
my
me off
Mike
on the right path.
Martino
Mike
coffee mug
Martino.
with a little bit of little kintsugi. It looks red on the camera. It seems like it,
Mike
but it's
Martino for president.
yeah. And then my water is in a shochu non giorno
Oh, I forgot about those things.
cup, but it's water. I promise.
Okay.
I'm not drinking a pint of shochu at 10 in the morning. Um,
That would
but
be a
yeah.
level up type of thing right there. That would be
That
impressive.
that that, that would be alcoholism, I believe.
Ah, could be.
Yeah. So if I can start off, set context here and why we're talking about Japanese gin, I think that might be
Japanese gin.
helpful.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So I think I might have mentioned that my New Year's resolution belatedly became that I wouldn't drink a beer unless I ran 5 kilometers,
Yeah, yeah, it
and I have
definitely was.
and I have to run the 5K first. I can't like bank. I can't like go back and run a 5K after having had a beer. So I have to do it um, in in the right order. I have to run
Okay.
first, and then I get a beer. And for every 5 kilometers I run, and I can also bank partial kilometers, right? So if I run 6 kilometers, that's one beer plus 1 kilometer toward another beer, right? So that's 20% of the next beer.
Sure.
So this has had an incredible effect on my interest in running. So it's now January 18th in the States, January 19th here in Japan, and I've run 46 kilometers.
Wow.
And to put that, so that's 9 beers, right? But to put that in context, I've only cycled 41 kilometers. So I'm actually running more than I'm cycling, which, as you know, cycling is something I do almost every day.
Sure.
Um, but it's been cold in Fukuoka, so the cycling has been less frequent. Although this week the running has also been less frequent due to the cold. But so I banked 9 beers, and I've decided to keep some of them. So I have a beer bank now, right? I've collected some beers,
Beer
and I'm
bank.
holding those back for when I just really want to have a beer, but I don't want to go for a run. And so what that's made me do is switch what I'm drinking sort of at my end of the day while I'm prepping dinner. I think a lot of people like to have a happy hour, right? You'd like to have, it used to be a cocktail hour. Uh, back in the day, what was the name of there was a fantastic pre-war uh, movie series. It was like serial movies, black and white with Myrna Loy, and I forget the actor's name, but then they solved capers basically, and they always had their cocktail hour, and he'd make little martinis in coupes, and they'd enjoy their drinks. And this is during the code era, and so they just drink like mad, and it
Yeah,
was
it
just a
sounds
really
like the
really
Thin
fun.
Man or something.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, it was the Thin Man series, and it's a hilarious series of movies. They're really really funny. The comic timing, and they're always enjoyable stories. But they just drink these cocktails like fish, right? And it's their cocktail hour, and that's just what they do.
Yeah.
And so what I realized was, oh, I don't want to go for a run today, but I'd like to have a drink to wind down, relax a little bit at the end of the workday. And so I started making gin drinks, started making
Okay.
cocktails at home, and I I'm not really a cocktail maker. I'm not a bartender or mixologist or anything like that. I've got a few drinks I can make reasonably well, but a very, very simple one, obviously, is a gin and tonic. Although I don't really like tonic that much. So, and also Japanese tonic is not American
It
tonic.
is interesting. Tonic here is interesting. It's a little, is it sweet?
It's sweet, yeah. And I don't need the sugar, right? I don't need the commercial industrial sugar of a
Yeah.
soft drink in my cocktail, basically. So what I've taken to doing is the Japanese gin sonic. So you
Mm-hmm.
cut the tonic with soda water, and then you've got half the sugar of a standard gin and tonic, and
Uh-huh.
that's more palatable to me. And I've actually found that our friends at Suzuyama, where's that
Yeah.
bottle? I think, did I already put it out? No. Where did it go? Okay. Our friends at Suzuyama
Yeah.
from Kuroki,
Mm-hmm.
same company, Kuroki Honten. Not only is this the most beautiful gin bottle I've ever seen in my life, and I'm sure I've shown it on the show before. It's got a glass topper,
Yeah.
really beautiful form factor. This makes an unbelievable gin sonic,
Okay.
like really, really fantastic. Um, but I've also been playing around with other gins, Japanese gins, to see what makes nice gin sonics. This actually came out, I think, over a year ago now, right? You and I tried
It
this.
was actually. It's not,
Yeah, this is not new.
it's not super new.
What and what he came out more recently, and I think we even talked about this on Shochu'sday, is there, I believe it's pomegranate. No, not pomegranate. What is it? This is the sorry kumquat.
Yeah, kumquat.
So
Okay.
yeah, so this is going to be more citrus forward, right? The kumquat is going to have more fruit than the original, uh, and that is a more recent release. And that's this one I actually haven't tried yet. I haven't actually opened this bottle. Something I'll need to do soon. Still got the cellophane wrap on the top, but this is the kumquat edition of the
Yeah, that
Osuzu
bottle
gin.
is really cool. I like how it kind of tapers out from bottom to top.
Yeah, it's got
Um,
pretty wide shoulders and it gets thinner. It's got a good,
yeah.
really nice form factor, nice base on it. It's beautiful glass for sure. So that's those guys, and we love Kuroki
Yeah.
generally,
We are
but
partial.
their original gin is just probably my favorite gin right now.
Hmm.
So that's the one I've been
Okay.
using for my cocktails. But then I've also started to play around with some other gins, and then uh, so this is the new release from
Yeah, I got one of
Shibushi.
those.
Yeah, so Shibushi. Sorry, not it's from Shibushi, the town, but this is Wakashio Distillery 424 gin. The original packaging was a blue label with yellow text, and now it's a yellow label with blue text. And what's unique about this is, can you really? It's hard to see.
Uh,
It's
you got it. Okay, the
I
still
gotta cover my
imagery on the
camera.
side.
Yeah. It's made from a wooden pot still,
Yeah,
so it's
which is
believed to be
crazy.
the only gin in the world made in a wooden pot still. And it's actually the base is sweet potato shochu. Actually, with I think everything we're talking about, the base is shochu. It's then redistilled with juniper and with or without other botanicals. And the
Uh-huh.
424 gin is juniper only. So it's the sweet potato shochu base. Second distillation is with juniper, and the first release actually was very sweet potato shochu forward in the gin, and this one's much more juniper forward. Um, but what's nice about this, because so many as we've talked about, so many Japanese gins are really citrus forward. They're really
Yeah,
really
they
citrus
are.
bombs.
Yeah, they are. It's like you're licking a mikan.
The only citrus you're going to get out of this is if you put a wedge of citrus in your glass when you're making your gin and tonic.
Mm-hmm.
So this one ends up being really spicy, which you would expect from a juniper only gin,
Yeah,
and it makes
sure.
for a really. It also makes for an excellent gin sonic.
Okay.
So really have been enjoying that one as well. This is only a 500 ml bottle, so I'm taking my time. I don't want to finish it too quickly. Although
Uh-huh.
I think a local liquor store is carrying it, so I can get more.
Oh, that's good.
Suzu is harder to find, but yeah. So those are the two that I've been playing around with basically recently with the gin sonic idea. But then we were in Kagoshima a couple of weeks ago, and something you have to do when you go to Kagoshima is you got to stop by Kosedo Saketen, right, the liquor store, which they have all the new cool stuff. And I just saw there was so much I wanted to bring back. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to carry all this back in my suitcase. I don't really want to go through the hassle of having them ship it to me. So I'll just pick up a couple small things. And so I ended up actually going with gin this time.
Okay.
One is it's another shochu maker, but this is actually Omoyajin. This is from Iki. So this is an Iki shochu that's redistilled into a gin, which I have not yet tried. Again, seal still on the bottle, but I'll have to pour off some of this and send you a care package so we can try this together. And we love these guys, right? They're the ones who make Chingu,
Yep.
and one of our favorite. They're the only handmade shochu maker left in Iki, right?
Yeah. Well, that's that they now have a drum, so
Oh, they do. Okay,
yeah.
so
So
they're
some
not
they do
all
some
handmade.
yeah, not 100%.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, and then this says, what does it say? Juniper, berry, and yuzu. So it's just a two botanical gin. But again, you've got the citrus. So we'll see how it is.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah.
But this will be the base will be a barley shochu, where the base of these other ones has been sweet potato.
That
So
should be interesting.
yeah,
I'm not sure I've
I think
had
so.
a barley shochu base gin. I don't think. Have I?
I think the Asakura craft gin may have been a barley base.
I have a bottle of that right here. Let me
Yeah,
confirm.
probably won't tell you what
No,
kind.
it doesn't say. It just says Honkaku Shochu, lemongrass, juniper, rokcha, peppermint. This is also a beautiful label,
Mhm.
made by
That's the
Shinozaki
Fukuoka.
Distillery in Fukuoka. Uh,
It's traditional Hakata fabric pattern, like weaving
it's really
is
nice.
what that's representing. Yeah, it is. It's cool.
But you're probably right. This might have been a mugi shochu. Okay, I didn't even think of that. Well, cool. We've plowed right into the gin segment, which is
Yeah.
good, and we've already got some comments here. One, Yukari is drinking rokujin, sorry, while
Yeah.
watching this, and Roku is one of the big players in the gin market. I don't know, was it one of the original Japanese gins out there?
Yeah. Well, it came about a year after Kinobi. So
Okay,
gin's been made and sold in Japan for close to 100 years, I think.
sure.
But the recent renaissance really started with Kinobi at the Kyoto distillery, and then as
And then
Suntory
Suntory got
and
involved.
Nika,
Hmm.
Suntory and Nika are both very good at making products that appear popular quickly. And
Yeah.
so within a year or two of Kinobi making waves, they had released essentially gins designed for export. They've been making domestic releases of gin like continuously for a long, long time. There's
Okay.
actually, the Wilkinson soda from
Yeah.
I believe that's
Yep.
from Asahi. Wilkinson gin exists. That's a domestic gin brand.
Yeah. I
Yeah, we
haven't
never
tried
think
that.
about it because it's like on the bottom shelf of the liquor store, right? It's not a premium product. It's never going to export as Wilkinson gin. It's just a gin that Nika's been making for a long time. And then Suntory has their own gins beyond Roku, but Roku was what they released, and Roku meaning six, so six
Yeah.
botanicals. Really nice faceted bottle with six sides,
Hmm.
and it's a nice gin. There's no doubt. I mean, Suntory makes good stuff, as does Nika. But what's followed on from that, and it's taken the shochu makers longer, is the realization that we can also make gin and hopefully expand
Sure.
our market share. So
One of the
yeah.
first ones that I remember seeing was the Kyoya's, what was it?
Oh, yuzu
Yuzujin.
gin.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
very early
They
in
were.
the
You're right.
genesis of what is now understood to be Japanese gin, and of course that's made with yuzu too, yuzu forward. I remember
Mhm.
sipping that when it was quite young at the distillery with Fever Tree Tonic,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, this is really interesting. It was
Mhm.
as expected, it was super, super citrusy, perhaps to a fault. But everybody's kind of curbed that a little bit. You'll notice that the second, third, fourth iterations of a lot of these expressions are they've pumped the juniper more and the rest of the spiciness while drawing back the citrus, which is, I don't know if they do that because they want to export. I'm really not sure, but it is now more along the lines of something that you would recognize as a gin, whereas before it was more of like, it was almost like it was just a citrus flavored spirit almost, in some cases. It had
Almost a
the,
citrus eau de vie, right? Yeah.
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, exactly. And let's see, we've got a
Yeah.
couple other questions, and Maya's question really, well, Maya reminds us that Komasa uses both mugi and kome bases. So for their gin, which also is very citrus focused, they use barley and rice shochu in that. But she has a question for you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the gin sonic versus just a gin soda?
Yeah, I actually default to gin soda usually when I'm drinking, but I've decided to play around with the Sonic because I like the concept, and I think it's going to be more approachable for a lot of people who want a little sweetness in their cocktail.
Uh-huh.
And when I'm not doing 50-50 tonic and soda. I'm doing about 2/3 soda and 1/3 tonic.
Okay.
And I have usually limes, lemons, and kabosu in the fridge, so I'm experimenting with different citrus wheels as well in my drinks. But I think with the juniper only gins, I think
Uh-huh.
they become so spicy without any sugar. Right? Something like the 424 gin, that in a soda is very, very spicy. So I
Okay.
think a little bit of tonic balances that out, gives you a little bit of sweetness.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
And actually, going back to yuzu gin, I don't have a bottle of that, but Kyoya, as you mentioned, they actually put in a dedicated gin distillery, gin still when they began their
Uh-huh.
experiments, because they were worried about what the juniper would do to their shochu pot stills. And Wakashio did the same thing. Wakashio put in a dedicated wooden still for the second distillation for the gin, because they didn't want the juniper berries to mess with the wooden pot distilled sweet potato shochu that they were making.
Yeah, sure.
So it kind of makes sense. And yuzu is distributed in the U.S. by Vine Connections, or well, I guess imported by Vine Connections and distributed to markets across the country. It's a black
Uh-huh.
bottle with yellow print.
Okay.
Pretty
And
striking
that's in
form
reference
factor.
to somebody had asked about that.
Yuzu gin. Well, then
There we go.
Grace
This is
actually
from
asked.
Chris Gillespie.
Okay.
Yeah, so that there is that. I'm sure there will be more soon. Very soon.
Yeah.
We
I
have
imagine.
information that we're not allowed to release, basically. But
Sure.
there's more coming, folks. Don't worry, it'll be there soon.
Yep. That's right. So for what's in the States or overseas right now, I think you've got Kinobi, obviously, is probably the most famous. And actually, it's a wonderful gin. It's a really, really beautifully
Kinobi's good.
built gin. Roku, as we talked about, and then Yuzu, as was mentioned as well. The first gin actually was Osuzu. So Osuzu gin, to my knowledge, is not currently exported anywhere, but I know that they have plans to do so. That they have a lot of products already in the U.S. and European markets from that distillery. So I think it's a matter of time before they get the gin over there. Another one that I haven't actually even mentioned yet is our friends at Komaki made a gin. I only bought minis. I've got one for you. I'll send it to you. Those cute. They actually did the label on the edge of the four-sided bottle, so for the
Nice.
front label. So Komaki. This one is Mikan Peel. Looks like some sort of, I can't read that. Never mind. Sancho, of course, juniper berry, and what is that? My reading is horrible. Anyway, we'll figure it out later.
Okay, to be continued.
Yeah, but
Richard,
yes, and Komaki makes great stuff too. So
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Richard just asked this important question. What is juniper? Juniper is the one ingredient. It's it's the you can call it fruit. It's often referred to as juniper berries is the one ingredient that is required of all gins. All gins carry this one ingredient. The berry is used to make it a gin, and by statute in the U.S., it has to be juniper forward in order to, on the nose, in order to even be considered a gin and labeled a gin. So there is a sniff check on these things, and it's very noticeable. It gives it that pine, maybe sometimes cedar aroma and flavor that is very common in gin. Some people love it, some people don't care for it so much. But all of these drinks we're talking about have juniper in it. And juniper is something that is not really cultivated in Japan. I know a lot of places import it from Macedonia. There's other countries, of course, that have significant juniper crops, but Japan is not one of them yet. There are some places that are working on harvesting juniper, I've heard. There's an attempt to make 100% Japanese gin with quote marks, which would mean all of the ingredients are sourced from Japan, but that has yet to happen as far as I know. And it's, juniper. It's in every gin you've ever had, I guess is the way to answer that.
Maybe not slow gin. Does slow gin have juniper?
I think it does, but I don't know.
Does it?
I'm not sure. Slow SLOE gin. Not SLOW. It's not like it has a learning deficiency.
Yep. It's funny, but Maya said in the chat that Komaki's main ingredient is a local ume or plum, and that's exactly what I thought it said, but I wasn't going to go out on a limb. So thank you, Maya.
Ume.
But anyway, looking forward to trying this. And Komaki makes great shochu as well, so this probably is a sweet potato shochu base, I guess. So yeah, lots of new gins coming, and I think as I think we've talked about, bless you, as we've talked about before on the show, gins are often what craft distilleries make first when they're first coming to market, because you don't have to put it in a barrel, you don't have to age it. It's basically ready to sell very, very shortly after you've made it. And so it makes sense that as some of these distilleries get into Western spirits, that they're starting out with a gin, because it's something you can take to market pretty quickly.
Sure.
But I think they're also, they're used to using, I think what's got us excited, but also maybe the cautionary side of it. The exciting side is all these shochu makers make beautiful fermentations. They make beautiful single pot distilled drinks, right? And in order to get a beautiful single pot distilled spirit, you've got to have a great fermentation, right? So we know that they're doing a great job on that. The counter side of that is they're not used to adding things as aromatics in the gin tradition, and so it's going to take some experimentation. And I think there might be a temptation to go to market too quickly. And as you mentioned earlier, some of the gins, the early releases, had way too much citrus, and now they're dialing that back and bumping up the juniper and getting it more balanced. But I think it's going to be an iterative process, and some of these gins will probably develop into beautiful products, and others may just, not end up as successful as the makers are hoping. But it's exciting. It's exciting times, I think, in Japanese gin. There's just a lot of movement, a lot of things happening.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. Now, if you're hoping to enter the gin market in Japan as a Japanese gin, you got a ton of competition. The gauntlet has been laid down. You can't just come in with something lazy and something easy. You're gonna have to do something unique, unless you're hoping to charge like 1,100 yen for the bottle, like about $10, and then you're gonna have, that's a more clear playing field. Basically, everything that's been released heretofore is a bit pricey. I mean, a bottle of the Osuzu gin is how much? Do you recall?
I think it's around 5,000 yen, around $50.
They're
in Japan.
$50. So this is not cheap stuff in Japan. Meaning that
Half
if and when
of it's the glass.
Yeah, no kidding. If and when it makes it to the States, it's gonna be pretty dear. An easy way to figure out how much something will cost in America versus in Japan is to basically quadruple triple the retail cost, and you kind of got an idea of what it's likely to be on a shelf. So you're talking $100+ dollar bottle of gin in the States, and that's not an easy sell, obviously,
Yep.
because people are used to paying, Tanqueray, Blue Bottle. This stuff is not up above 3 digits, so
Sure.
you can get decent gin. You can get a lot of decent gin for under $50 around
Oh, there's
the
some
world.
fantastic gins under $30 in the U.S. I was on a delivery site recently just checking this to see what gins were going for. And Kenobi's going $60-$70 a bottle. So that market does exist, and people are certainly buying it. But
How about the $150 bottle of gin?
that unless it's a 3-liter bottle of gin, I'm not sure that's gonna fly.
That'd be a full boat of gin for that price.
Sure.
Tricky. John brings up a good point, that, and I actually don't know. I was under the impression, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure the legal definition of gin in the States is that it is made with juniper. And if there are some quote unquote gin products out there that don't use it, then maybe I'm wrong, or maybe the TTB is not paying attention. The TTB does not pay attention to gin. We know that for a fact. We saw a gin that has elephant dung in it, and they were able to import it, or it was distilled from elephant dung, and that was, I'm sure that was able to sail right into the States because it's a gin, and the TTB does not care. Gin, rum, whiskey in the traditional sense, not an issue, right? So
For the most part. But
yeah.
I think London dry gin is now the predominant style. I think it's what most people think of as gin these days, right? It's Tanqueray, it's Bombay, it's Boodles and Gibson and all of these whatever are gins. So I think, is Gibson a brand? I know that's a cocktail. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. But anyway, those are all London dry gins, and that's what I think most people think of as gin. But you've also got Old Tom gin, and you've got, as we mentioned, slow gin. There are other quote unquote gins.
Yep.
Yeah. And then it all comes from Juniper, from the Dutch tradition of essentially Juniper in Dutch means juniper. So I think so. Yeah, John's right. I was thinking of Ghibli gin, not Gibson gin.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Gilby. Yeah. But I think that's what most Japanese spirits makers are trying to replicate as a London dry gin. They're not looking at Old Tom. They're not looking at slow gin. So it makes sense that they're using juniper. And we'll see how it all plays out. Some of the citrus gins are a little bit too citrusy for us, but that doesn't mean that they will be for everybody. And really, the market's going to respond to what the market responds to. So we'll see. But yeah, it'll be nice to get some local juniper rather than having all of the juniper berries imported to Japan.
Sure. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, any final thoughts on gin? That was a good solid 30 minutes of Japanese gin talk.
Sure. I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's keeping me from having to run. I get my my cocktail hour drink without the carbs of a beer. So that's been my sort of workaround when I can't find time for a run. But Christopher, we got to get you running. I think that's
do we?
That's my other goal for 2022.
Wow.
So you can get
that's
some running shoes on, Christopher. Yeah.
I do. I mean, I jog on the treadmill at the gym at the gym to warm up, before I move heavy things around. Not very heavy, but before I exercise. But that's about the extent of my running.
But you ran in college. This should be easy.
Well, sure, yeah, I did. I mean, in terms of like when was I really a full-time runner? That was in high school and junior high school. I used to run cross country, but I don't enjoy running on the streets. I don't. It's not my favorite thing. I like running through the woods, which is why cross country worked for me. And then
Sure.
when I on track and field, I stayed away from distance. I was a decathlete, so the longest I had to run was 1,500 meters, and that was painful.
1,500 meters.
1,500 meters is the
Yeah.
last event in the decathlon.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate
Okay.
kick in the teeth. 2 days of
Sure.
competition. The last thing you have to do is run a 1,500, and it's
Yeah.
all it's just brutal. It's the worst
Sure,
thing,
sure.
worst thing ever.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, the local park here has a rubberized track, so I'm actually
That's
not running
awesome. That'll save your
on pavement.
knees.
Sure. And my knees need saving after 30 years of soccer, so they're fragile instruments.
This is a silly conversation for Shochu'sday, but what's your recommendation for running shoes? What do you? I know you only wear Adidas. Sorry, that was a stupid
I
question.
do. Yeah, that's not a paid advertisement, but I'm an Adidas guy. I found when I was playing soccer competitively that Adidas fit my feet the best of all the different brands, and so I just became an Adidas guy. And they still seem to. I haven't actually gone to other shops and comparison shops, but Nike tend to be a little bit narrow for my feet.
Gotcha.
So I tend to wear Adidas, and so I just went into the Adidas store and I said, "All right, I'm 50 years old. I want to start running again. I need shoes that are going to protect my knees." And so he's like, "We have these that have a platform this thick, and you'll look like a clown, or we have these that have a platform this thick." And I said, "I'll take the second one because I don't want to look like a clown. I feel like I'd fall over with those really, really thick shoes,
Balancing,
like walking on stilts." And they work really well. I threw away my 20-year-old running shoes and I put on my new ones, and they don't really seem to bother me. So, I mean, my knees will start aching around 7 kilometers, so I can do my 5Ks and get my beer for the day. But
that's what this is all about. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. What this is all about is paying it forward so that we can drink like we normally do. Which there's
I mean, as you
nothing wrong
age,
with that.
you need to do something to keep your weight off, right? And
You are no joke, and I'm sure that a lot of people listening to this right now are rolling their eyes in a no shit Sherlock moment.
but maybe we need a Shochu'sday running club. Maybe we need to get everybody to get out there, break out their running shoes and start running for their drinks. Japan Distilled Running Club. Shochu'sday Running Club has a nice ring to it.
Shochu'sday, yeah, the Shochu'sday Running Club.
Viewers are dropping like flies.
Yeah, I know. They're just like, what are you talking about? Yeah, we should let's go back. Mark Smith, just so that we have a little bit more alcohol content here. What are your thoughts on the future of the gin market in Japan?
Great question. As you and I know, that drinks in Japan go through waves, right? You had a shochu boom, and then you had a craft beer boom, and then you had a wine boom, and then you had another shochu boom, and then you had a sake boom, and then you had et cetera, et cetera. And we're in the middle of essentially a whiskey highball boom right now, right? And what will be the next drink to capture Japan's collective attention? Don't know. could be gin sonics, could be gin highballs.
Everybody seems to be making rum right now, which is wild. So who knows what's coming?
Yeah, rum seems to be the next wave of these new products that are coming to market from lots and lots of distilleries, and we'll probably talk about that as some of these brands come online. But I think where I think the challenge is, I think you actually touched on it earlier, is these craft shochu makers who make these amazing shochus are hoping to create a premium gin that they can sell overseas, and essentially help keep their business afloat, because shochu sales are declining in the U.S. I'm sorry, shochu sales are declining in Japan. So these shochu makers are looking for new markets and new opportunities, and gin seems like a way that they could do that to appeal to Western drinkers. and to Japanese drinkers here. The trouble, as you mentioned, though, is you can get a bottle of Japanese gin in Japan for about $10, right? Made by Suntory or Nikka. You can probably find a $10 to $15 bottle of Wilkinson or one of the Suntory gins. So if people just want gin, there's cheap gin available. And these craft makers, I think, are going to have a really hard time competing on price. And I think the same thing happens once you export. As you said, it's probably 3 times the domestic retail price here in Japan for gin overseas. And then you're talking potentially about $60, $70, $80 bottles of gin, which I don't think many consumers have a palate for.
It's not going to be popular unless it has
Yep.
just the most amazing story and the
Yep.
most amazing packaging and the most amazing marketing push behind it. It's just, you're not going to sell a lot of it. And if that's the goal, fine, but you're really not going to sell a lot of it. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
going to be drips and drips, and it's not a way
Sure.
to make a living, I don't think.
Yeah, and we've had this conversation with some shochu makers who are like, what do you think of our gin? We're like, it's great. What does it cost? And they tell us, and we're like, oh, so this is the price in the US. You think you can lower it a
think
little
that's
bit?
gonna
They're
work?
like, not really.
How much marketing
Price-
money are you willing to pile into this? It's
Yeah,
important.
yeah. Yeah, and these tend to be small family distilleries, right? They don't have all the
have a
capital
budget
of
for
a Nikka, Suntory, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Yeah,
it's not impossible, and
No,
some
it
of them will
is
catch
absolutely
on. I mean, if you think about it, probably the most famous or popular, I don't know if it's the most popular, most famous gin in the world right now is probably Monkey Shoulder. Or Monkey 47. Sorry, Monkey 47.
47, yeah.
Which is a German gin that costs a fortune for even for like a 375, like a small bottle costs a lot. And so, and people seem to love it. So there is, if you create the right brand, as Christopher said, packaging and story and everything else,
Marketing
something might take off. You might end up with a great international product. But we'll find out, I guess.
Be ready to give a lot of it away. I think that's another thing that these makers need to understand. You got to give it away at first. You got to be ready to go out there and just pour it for everybody. And you're not going to make any money for a long time, but you got to be in it to win it. Otherwise it's going to they're going to be tears. Let's move on to, if we may be so bold, I'm going to switch the banner to we're going to go to Shochu Rakuen really quickly and do another tasting, because we've only just started box B, set B, and this one is a selection from Uto Shuzo in Minami Satsuma, which is in southern Kagoshima. This is a 20% ABV sweet potato shochu made with what it says in the book, in the recipe and pairing book, is that it's the name of this one is the Kimpo Beni Haruka. So Beni Haruka sweet potatoes with rice koji. The way they recommend drinking it is interesting. They recommend chilling the bottle and sipping it straight. 20%
nice.
ABV kind of makes sense. My bottle is not chilled because
Neither is mine.
Unprepared.
And what was the first word you said when you said what kind of potatoes it is?
Well, actually, the brand name Uto's famous brand is Kimpo. So this one is called what do they call it? They call it Kimpo Beni Haruka. So the name of the sweet potato is Beni Haruka, which everybody's familiar with. And let me get a
Is that
tasting
then the
glass.
Kimpo is maybe to let us know it's from the same potatoes as they're used to make their main brand, I guess, huh?
You know what? I'm not entirely sure about that because I haven't had Kimpo since last year.
They've also got the food pairings, right? And
they do, and this one is a katsuo.
their food pairing looks phenomenal. It's a Yakatsu Tataki, so a seared katsuo or bonito, topped with some, looks like sliced garlic and scallions on a bed of
tamanegi,
shaved
myoga,
onions,
garlic, ponzu, shoyu, and salt. It's a pretty simple recipe. One of the simplest thus far in the book.
Sure.
I like the aroma of this sweet potato shochu because there's a lot of grape There's a lot of Concord grape on it, which I'm not accustomed to smelling in a sweet potato shochu. That's really interesting. And then, you know, after that blows off, and this is just a fresh, that was the neck pour of the bottle, so maybe it's going to settle out here. It is a very fruity sweet potato shochu, 20% ABV, which, as viewers will know, is low for sweet potato shochu. Sweet potato shochu in Japan is just standard is 25%, not 24%, as you might be used to in the States. 25% and above. And it's completely clear. Has a decent fruitiness to it, although mine has off, you know, kind of calmed down already. Oh, but then that's nice, and the fruitiness carries through onto the palate. It's got a hint of earth and pepper, but it never gets really, it doesn't get fiery at all. There's almost no ethanol burn at all on that.
Sure, 20%. Yeah.
Really unassuming. I'm not going to call it light, but it was very friendly. Maybe that's what we'll call it. And so that would be an easy one to just, I get it. If you chilled that and just sipped it straight, I totally get it. That would just be like a little bit of it would be kind of a plus proof white wine or something almost. You know, it has that fruitiness and that bouquet to it. Really interesting drink. And I really want to try it with this Yakatsu Tataki.
Yeah, sure. I occasionally see the large pieces of katsu at the supermarket, and I guess I could just, what do they do, roast it, like slow cook it in the oven, or I don't know, I'll figure it out. Not slow cook it, like anyway, I'll work out the recipe.
Yeah, they just, it looks like they probably just scald
Sear it.
Yeah, they sear it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, please do that. I mean, this is something that you had threatened to do at one point. You had said you were going to make some of these recipes and try to duplicate it and see how it goes. I guarantee that's going to be good. That one especially. The other one that I remember that sounded great, there was a just last time with the Yamada, the Nagakumo, the last time we did this, there was a 30% Kokuto Shochu from Yamada Shuzo down in Amami. On page 28, it describes a Korean inspired gimbap. What they pronounce it kimpa. And it's basically a norimaki that looks not nori. It's what is that?
Fantastic.
Rice paper looking, and
rice paper.
Some type of leaf inside. That looks amazing too. So those two look like those are drool inducing.
Definitely. Yeah, a few of these look really, really good. So I'll play around with some of these recipes eventually.
Please do. All right. Well, good. We that was another good one. We haven't had any weird ones, which I don't expect anything super weird, but I was worried that something kind of a little funky was going to make its way in there. And so far, through 7 samples, 7 300 ml bottles, we haven't found anything that was just like, oh no, I can't finish that.
Sure.
Cool.
I have finished a couple of them. How about you?
I haven't. I just put them back in the box. I mean, you may see that I have a lot of other. These little guys have a lot of competition from. Actually, you know what? This is really cropped off. This, like, if you can go equidistant on either side about a meter, and it's just
Look at that.
Look at what you just did. Okay, so I've got plenty to finish, and it's funny because it's nice to have all of these choices, but at this point I'm just like, I need to get some of these bottles out of here. So I am more focused now in my attack, in my approach to drinking. It's much more, rather than prancing about and having a little bit of this and a little bit, we're getting rid of that bottle. And I've also been a little bit more disciplined about not purchasing things. Like the last time I went to Kagoshima, I only came back with a single bottle that I had purchased. I came back with 2 bottles because somebody gave me one, but I only bought one, which is a record for me, and I was intensely proud of myself. And of course, that stupid bottle is never going to get consumed. It's just in the storage over there where I keep all the weird ones. And I've stayed off of the aftermarket stuff for the whole year. I haven't even looked at those websites yet in 2022. I'm trying to stay off it. Turned over a new leaf.
That is a new leaf.
Yep. Speaking of new leaves, how about newly opened?
Sure. Well, I have a newly opened and newly finished.
Good
You
work.
sent me a care package recently.
Gold star.
And you sent me an Ishobin of Isami, sweet potato shochu from Isa. And I'd had it before. It was nice to revisit it. But I also didn't want to keep a lot of bottles around. And so this became my sipper for whenever I wanted sweet potato. I normally have a bottle of Yamato Zakura opened, but I decided to work through the Isami when I killed my last bottle of Yamato Zakura. So thank you for this, Christopher.
You're very welcome.
I just
finished one of my bottles of that yesterday, 2 days ago, I guess. So excellent choice. Isami is great. My newly opened is Mugi Hokka, which is roasted barley shochu, and this is some of you can get this in the States now, but this is the Japan domestic label. It looks very similar to the US label, and it's just one of those funny ones where you go back to it occasionally and you're like, wow, that is really good. I forgot that that's actually really good. And just the nose on it with all that coffee and the chocolate. And I do drink this. It works well pretty much any way you sip it. On the rocks is really good. It's good with sparkling. I have tried it a couple of times, although not recently, but I have tried it a couple of times with hot water, oyuwari, and it's good. It's really nice. And it's so funny when a maker that is known for making sweet potato just comes out, knocks one out of the park on one of its first tries with something that is a little bit unexpected. That's quite fun, and that's exactly what Tensei Shuzo in Shibushi did with this one.
Nice. You're right. It's a beautiful drink. It's one of my favorite roasted barley shochu, and I like it. I think I was talking about it before. I like that one in coffee with soda. So a little bit like gin Sonic. I call it a coda. It's a coffee soda with a splash of Mugi. But yeah, it's a good refreshing drink. So I'll have to break out my bottle and have one of those. Maybe that's today's afternoon tip. Give the gin a rest.
Maybe the gin needs a rest. Well, great. Okay, so I'm hearing that too. Justin just mentioned that audio is glitching on us, so you're getting an echo on your side for some reason, Stephen. So maybe that's a good sign to close episode number 87 out. And that was good. That was a whole bunch of gin content. We name checked a bunch of really good brands. So if you ever need ideas, please come back to this episode. Also, as these things go, we do on Japan Distilled have a decent gin episode, and I want to try to find that right now so that I can tell you exactly which number it is. The gin, where is it? Japanese gin. You know what? I'm just going to share my screen so that everybody can follow along as I'm looking at this. And let's see, share screen and Chrome tab, and here we go, share. Okay, so this is the Japan Distilled website, and this is a list of all of the podcast episodes that we've released thus far. The most recent, the first one of season 2, which we released, I guess, a little over a week ago, is Malt versus Koji. And where is the gin episode? Let's see.
It's number 16.
Number 16. Okay, good call. So Jumping into Japanese Gin is episode number 16. You can listen to it on Japan Distilled website, or you can go to wherever you prefer to consume your podcast content. And we go through a bunch of the basics and a bunch of, well, there you go. There's Kinobi, which was mentioned earlier. And Nika coffee gin made from a coffee still or continuous still. There's Roku, which we mentioned at the top, as well as Yuzu gin, which I mentioned, the gin made by Kyoya. And then Komasa, we also got to mention in this one. There's the first iteration of 424 Gin, Shibushi Gin. Stephen and I held up a yellow bottle earlier, and this is the blue bottle, which was the first vintage of it. And I held this. Wow, we basically
we got
repeated. We didn't mention Sakurao. We didn't talk about this one. This is an interesting one that we talked about on a previous episode of Shochu'sday as well. The Dennoshin Gin. There's Osuzu. There you go.
Yep.
And anyways, so if you're interested in learning more about gin, then I think I would say go and check episode 16. And Stephen just dropped it in the chat so that everybody can like it and love it. Please rate, review, and subscribe is what I am paid to say. All right, and your audio seems to have normalized again, which is cool. So this is
great.
Here we yeah, good. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Christopher.
Good idea for this week, and we'll be back again next week, everybody, with another episode number 88 of Shochu'sday. Until then, from both of us here in Japan to all of you out there around the world, a very hearty and heartfelt kanpai.
Kanpai.